welcome to the Pushing Horizon podcast. This is your host Ash. Ultrarunning looks simple from the outside. A runner grinding through the miles, suffering, pushing, and eventually crossing a finish line. But the reality is way messier. The truth is, most ultras are held together by people you never see. The crew, the ones who stay awake when you can't, who solve problems you don't notice until it's too late, and who hold your entire race together when your mind starts to break. This episode is about that world, the part of ultras where calculation meets absolute chaos. Because while you are out there dealing with the legs, your stomach, your thoughts, someone else is doing the math with no sleep, tracking your pace, your calories, your hydration, watching the weather, studying your face and gait to figure out if you're lying when you say you're fine. They are running their own ultra too, just without the beef. And honestly, the deeper I get into this sport, the more respect I have for the crew chiefs. They don't get the medal, they don't get the finish line photo, but without them, most of us don't even make it to the final third of the race. Today's guest lives in that chaos and somehow manages to bring order to it. She has saved races, held runners together, and kept them moving when everything around them was falling apart. This is the side of ultra running most people never think about: the backstage grit, the constant problem solving, and the pressure of making the right call when everything is on the edge. And in that note, please let me introduce to our guest today. And in that note, please let me introduce to our guest today. Here is Deb. Hey Deb, welcome to the podcast. And thank you so much for your time, early morning from the United States, Ohio. You are seven people. I think 7% that I'm talking from Ohio. I think they have a lot of auto runners there. I think that is why I was talking to Amanda last time. Like it, I don't know what is it with the state because there is so many runners from the state.
There's not much to do here, so we have to run.
Oh yeah, true. Probably. I know you briefly, right? So we just have been chatting, and I seen your Insta and stuff like that. So I know a brief about you. So can you please give a quick introduction? Who is Deb?
Deb is, I started running back in 2008. Just really, I taught myself. I just started running to the mailbox and then gradually did that. I did half marathons on the road for years. I actually started out in triathlons and was working up to a full triathlon Ironman. And during training for a half Ironman, I had a really bad bike accident and I could not get back on the bike. Injuries, I was in casts for months, like 16 weeks. And so the only thing I could do was run. I couldn't ride, I couldn't swim because it was pretty much upper body. And so I started running more than the 10K that was required at the time for the Ironman distance that I was training for, that half one. And I started running with casts on my arms and broken shoulder. And that's how I started doing the half marathons on the road. So I did that for years. I coached people for years running on the road. And then one of my friends, Deb, she was doing marathons and she talked me into doing a marathon. So I did the Columbus Marathon in October of 2015. She helped me train for the whole thing because 20 miles back then, I was like, we're at 13, we're good. That was pretty long and fearful. So got through that. I was excited. I even trained, met my goal of the time and everything. And then I had my friend Amanda. She was doing these long distances, right? 50 milers, 100 milers. And so I started looking at her. We started training together and I caught the bug because it was in the woods. I had run in the woods a bit with my friend Tamara Clark. She had introduced me to the trails. So we started going on Wednesday nights, 5K, 5 miler in the woods. I loved it. We would go at sunset. It was amazing. And then Amanda was doing it longer, right? So I started training with Amanda. And by, let's see, was it April, I think it was April or early May of the following year in 2016, I did my first 50K. And it was awful. It rained the entire time. There was mud up to my kneecaps. It was incredible, but it was like the really bad, like mind testing ultra. But it was amazing at the same time. I finished. I did it within the time allotted. I was not last. I thought for sure I was last place. But I got the bug. Even as bad as it was cold, it was rainy. We had water up to, I'm not that tall, I'm only 5'4". There was water up to our hips in the water crossings. So, yeah, but I still caught the bug. So I went on in 2016 and just started working towards longer distances. I did my first 50 miler. I did my first 50K beginning of May, end of April. And then I did my first 50 miler end of June. And my first 50 miler was all flat. So I tried to get the distance down in my mind. So I did flat. It was like on a towpath. And then from there, I just started getting the bug for longer and longer. You know, the longest race I've done for myself is a 50-50, 81 miles. So 50K and then with a 50 miler. They call it a 50-50. So that's my longest race. I have not gone completely to the 100. I caught the bug for crewing and pacing that year later in the year.
You were wise. You did 50 flat.
Thank you.
Yeah. Made mistakes. So. But I know now. I'm wiser now too.
All learning experiences is all growth.
Yes, yes. Yeah, that lot of growth happened
Right.
that day. So, and you talked about studying from triathlon, which is unique. So you came from a triathlon background, and then you did a marathon, and then obviously we all transitioned from marathon to ultra running. So, can you remember the first time you did the race, and how did it felt when you finished that crossing line?
The marathon or
No,
the
for your
50K?
first ultra or
Oh,
marathon.
it was such relief because it was just so muddy and so rainy, and I was out there for 8 hours. It was just under 8 hours because that was the cutoff. You couldn't run. I was literally fast-paced hiking the last 5 miles because the mud was just so deep. And I couldn't pull. I didn't have the pull to get my shoes out of the mud. But it was a relief. It was happiness. It was an incredible high that I did it and I didn't quit because there were people that dropped. They were like, I am not doing this to myself. And maybe they were going longer distance, and this was like just a training run for them. But yeah, I was determined not to quit. If I was the last person across the finish line, I was doing it. So that was back then they had what was called the Possum 50K. And so that feeling was just amazing. I was towards the back of the pack, but there were still people. My friends came and cheered me on. That they didn't tell me they were coming. So they were at the finish line. And yeah, so I was relieved and elated all at the same time.
I know that feeling. I may have cried too
Yeah.
after realizing what I'm about to dawn on. I think that was my issue too. It more than the distance, it was this physical limitation that I even had for myself, that I cannot do hard things or I cannot
Oh,
do distance. And then
yep.
yeah, so when it was 55 kilometer, then I was like, I remember I took a video and I was like, just happier for myself and proud of myself because I was able to do this thing that I set out to do. I could have quit because it was so hard. When I was coming down and the pain was unbearable, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. But then, like talking to everybody, like through this podcast, where you learn about these micro goals when you're going through these tough phases in the race when you are low, and then you make these small mini goals, and that's what I did. And when it came 55 kilometers, I was like proud of myself that I didn't quit, because I could have quit, but I even the situation was tougher. I kept going, and like 1 kilometer at a time, 1 kilometer at a time, and then I was like, God, I cannot believe I'm doing this. So I understand that feeling. I think this is the only race I've ever cried. I think this is the first time that it happened to me.
Yeah. I can't remember crying. Maybe I did out of joy of it's over kind of thing. I can't remember. But I remember the feeling of happiness and being relieved.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably the same thing for me too. The cry of like, finally,
Yeah.
the elevation is finished. But it did not. They put a hill at the last kilometer,
Oh,
and
that's the
and
worst.
right before, yeah, right before the finish line, and there was this hill, and it was all rock, and I did a video, and I was like, who does this? Why are you making us go through this last like 700 meters, and you have to put this hill on it? And I was like, God, that was rough. That
Yeah.
was. I just walked, and then I finished the race running, but I walked that spot. Now going back to you, right? So when was this moment that you realize that you we talked about earlier on that you said you like this feeling of of this running in the trail and running these distances, but when did you realize that you were made for running? Because before you used to do this triathlon and said you were training for a triathlon, and that is a totally different endurance sports than compared to just running. So at one point you realized that I think I love this.
I don't know that it came out as I love this. It was more of a necessity because I was in cast for 16 weeks. And by the things are habit forming after so long. So after 16 weeks of being in cast and only running, and my fear, I've gotten back on the bike since. I did a couple of triathlons, but it wasn't the same. I think it just became habit forming. And then being in the trails and on the trails and seeing the beauty and the animals that you get to see and everything, it's the beauty of being in the woods and on the trails that really, that's what got me to run the long distances, was knowing what was out there and the beauty. And we have a really hard race here called Mohican 100. That's probably our hilliest here in Ohio. And so I started going to the 50K up at Mohican. And that was really hard. The hills, like you're saying, and the downhill and the uphill. And I liked not being able to breathe. Because I was in my mind, I was like, okay, like I tell myself, I tell the people I coach, you can do anything as long as your mind is with you. You can't, you set small goals like yourself. Do 100 steps running and then stop. If you're on a hill, just walk it. You don't have to run it, just hike it up. We do a lot of hiking in our training just so that we get to that fast paced hiking. And so I think it's the beauty of the woods that really drew me onto the trails, that kept me there. I never wanted to go back to road. I never ran a road marathon again. I think I did a half marathon, maybe a 15K on the road with some of the people I coach just to help them along and get them to, but other than that, for myself, I never did another road half or full marathon.
Yeah, I've heard about the Mohican because, like you said, I talked to Alec and then Abby and then Levi. So they were talking about how it was, and it's muddy. Like Alec always wins the races,
Alex is
whatever
amazing.
whatever. Yes, super fast.
Yes,
Cannot believe
yes.
it's
And a great mindset.
incredible.
Great mindset.
Yeah,
He just did Eastern States last weekend when I was doing the Buckeye 200, and he I think he came from 12th is what he told me, 12th place, and came up to second. And he kicked the last like bit in like under a 6 minute mile because third place, they could see third place right behind him. So I know 100 miles in
yeah,
Eastern States, really mountains, a lot of mountains, very mountainous, and he kicks it in sub 6. That's incredible.
yeah. He's wicked fast.
Yeah.
And super chill too. I
Yes.
love. We did a podcast and it was like, oh my god, it's just nice the way he talks, and it's not even ego. Like he just
No.
genuinely loves to run fast, and yeah,
Yeah.
it's like who, and he's like, I did 100 miler and my marathon pace was 320. I was like, dude, that's like 320 is PR for a lot of people. Like even I cannot. My marathon is not even 320. So I
No,
was
I
like,
don't even know that.
yeah, but I did that on. Yeah, it is amazing.
Yes.
It's
And he's
this
got a great
community is
support
awesome.
system. His wife, Samantha, is amazing.
Yeah,
She goes and she cruises him and he
yeah,
runs a ton of miles. So to
Yeah,
on that end of it. I think that's really important that you have that support system,
yeah,
in your life.
true, true. And in this topic, right? So you have transitioned from running, and now you crew for people.
Yes.
So briefly, you mentioned earlier on that you caught this bug of crewing. So can you give a little bit of brief into what is that you are doing and how does this work before we deep dive into it?
Sure. So, crewing to me, crewing and pacing, I still run, I just don't do races anymore. I'm always trained for a 50K, so I can do 50Ks for the slower people. I couldn't ever pace out or Levi. Those people are super fast. But that I really love the feeling of watching somebody else transform and crossing their own finish line. That gives me more joy than any finish line I've ever crossed. And so once I started back, I think my first crewing was at Mohican 100 2016, and I just loved it. I loved planning what we were doing with at every aid station, what we were eating, how fast we needed to be, how slow we needed to be to get the job done, to get to the finish line. I loved every avenue of it. I'd sit down and I'd plan things out. I'd study the courses. I everything's in a notebook. So I just wrote down everything for races, and I just love it. I people all ask me, like, what do you do while they're out there, because you see them for 2 3 5 minutes at an aid station. I'm like, oh, I have plenty to do. I'm making sure everything's back where it's supposed to be, because when you crew, you're just getting things out, getting things ready, and making sure if there's anything you didn't anticipate or something that they need, you're just pulling it out, right? And then just throw everything on the ground to get them out the door of the aid station. So I love the quickness of it. I have great capacity to not sleep, which serves me well during ultras. So I have chronic insomnia, so it works out well for ultras. Like we did, so the longest race we've done is Cocodona 250. Out of the first time my runner did it in 100 and I think 16 hours or 113 hours. I slept, of those hours, I slept maybe 7 hours. Yeah, I love it. I can't sleep. I need to track people. I need to know where they are. If they're getting off course, I need to know that.
And when you do this kind of races, right? So crewing is one of the most important things because it's just not about like getting things ready, because like you said, you have to plan so many things, you have to look at things, you have to observe, and one of that's the key thing. One of your reels says is observation is how we save races, right? So
Right.
and when so how do you look at situation when you are crewing somebody, and what are the key things that you keep an eye on for?
Oh, I look at how when they're running in, I look at their gait. I look at how their posture is. I can tell from that whether they're tired, they're lacking calories, salt. I look at their face. That's as they're running in. And then when they come to me, how they're speaking to me. Are they clear? Are they is like looking at their eyes? You can tell a lot by the eyes. They'll say one thing, but the eyes tell another. I can see fear in somebody's eyes, or like their doubt or anything like that in their eyes. If their eyes aren't strong, then it's time for a pep talk while I'm getting their bottles ready, while they're eating, letting them know that they can do this, right? Because they doubt themselves. We all do in a race. You're at that low because there's peaks and valleys during every race, whether it's a 50K, whether it's a 250K or miler. There's doubts that creep in, right? So I'm their cheerleader. I'm their person that says, you can do this, right? And so those are the things that I look for in the beginning. Then they'll come in and tell me what's wrong. Or if they come in and don't even say anything, I'll be like, okay, what's going on? What's going on up here? Is there something that hurts? What are you thinking? So those are the initial things. And then once we get to talking, if there is a problem, then that's when I go into problem solving mode, right? My knee hurts. Where does your knee hurt? Okay. And then if we need to K-tape something, right? We K-tape that spot and I'm out the door. So it's anything that we need to address, we address it up front and early. I tell people, don't come in and then the next aid station, oh, at the last aid station, I had this. Let's address it up front. If you're feeling nauseous,
And
let's address it right there. Don't put it off.
as you are, it's a important role, right? If you're queuing somebody, let's say at Kokudana, that means it's practically they are saying, okay, you got this because I'm putting my whole race on you, right? So when what has been, let's say, let's talk about this. What has been the worst thing that you have seen or experienced while you were crewing, and what are the best things?
Cocodona or at any race? Any race?
Any
Because
races?
it wasn't
Yeah.
Cocodona. Cocodona was not my worst experience as far as seeing something. I was out pacing my best friend. It was our first 200 miler. It was her first, it was my first. We did meticulous planning and training for 6 months. And if I'm going with you to your 200 miler, to your 100 miler, I'm doing half the training that you're doing. So if you're putting in 200 miles a week, I'm putting in 100 because if I'm out there pacing, I have to be strong, right? So I always go into that training mode with you, with them, whoever it is. But we were out at the 2019, and it's pretty famous now. There are tons of pictures, articles on what happened out in 2019. We were at mile like 160, I think. Because the first 5 miles were fine. It was supposed to rain. It was 55 degrees when we left the aid station. It was supposed to rain. We were prepared, we thought, for rain. We had on gear and we researched gear and we bought so much and took back so much during the training process, right, that didn't work, that people say would work, or even the manufacturer. And so we took our rain gear out with us. It started raining. We learned that the jackets, and we got the same jacket, the jackets did not hold the water off of us. It did not repel. And so we were soaking, but it was 55. It was manageable. We were fast paced hiking at that point too. There were very few running moments at mile 170. We were on top of the mountain and you could look over and you could see Lake Tahoe to our left. And we both looked over and saw, it was the most incredible and shocking thing I've witnessed to date. Just, you could see like a swoosh of air bringing snow to us. The temperature dropped down to 25 degrees. So, not prepared. We both had on pants, of course, and long sleeved and our coats, but not prepared for snow. We had gloves, but everything was soaked. So when that wind and snow came through, it was hard. At first, like, we looked at it, but we'd been training all winter. We were used to snow in Ohio, right? So that was one advantage to being in Ohio. But being soaked and then dropping down to 25 degrees, it was unbearable. We were going hypothermic. I got us turned around 4 different times. She was like, I'm done. I'm like, we're not done. We can do this. It was unbearable. Nobody was behind us. Nobody was in front of us. We couldn't see anybody. That 10 miles, it was like a 20-mile stretch. And yeah, it was awful. There are pictures. There was a high drop rate during that time period. If you made it out before all that, out of the aid station and were farther out, you could make it to the other side. People in my time frame and behind me, we ended up dropping. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to do, was admit, because I kept turning around 4 miles or 4 times. And at that last time, we were soaked, we were cold, we were going hypothermic. It was really hard. And it was hard mentally, it was hard physically. We found our way to the road and going back towards the other aid station. And we found a guy in a truck who picked us up and drove us down because we were so far out. And by the time we got to the aid station, they had already closed it because everybody was either dropped or through it. So we did have in-reaches. I don't know if you know what an in-reach is. So we have an in-reach. system where it's called a Garmin InReach. They're like your own satellite phone. So we had our crew with one satellite phone, and we had the other satellite phone, and we called them and I called them up on the mountain. I was like, "You got to get to us. You've got to find us." And then when we got to the road, I was like, "All right, we're making our way down to back to the other aid station. You need to come get us." And yeah, that was the hardest thing I've ever been through in a 200, 250. That was the hardest, is mentally and physically. We went back finally, COVID hit, we couldn't do it. We went back in 2022 and crushed it. But that was the hardest thing I've ever. I have chills right now just going through that.
Yeah, I cannot imagine. And 50, 25 is it's not fun,
No.
especially if it rain and then if it drop, then that's it. Like, no, I'm glad you guys are okay and
Yeah.
you made it. And then
Thank you.
now it's a funny story. Yeah, it's like one of the interesting things that you can share. Like, hey, do you remember one time we went to do this 250 miler and then this happened? So there we go.
Yeah.
And what has been the most fascinating story? That was the tough one, but what has been the nicer one? No,
Yeah.
not.
I think the most fascinating story would be Katie this past weekend or at Bigfoot. Both female runners. And Katie came in third overall at Buckeye 200 this past. Now that was all road. There was very little elevation. I think like 6,000 feet over 200 miles. And Katie slept almost 5 hours a night, or tried to sleep 5 hours. So we had 5 hour block that she was not even running or walking. And the last, oh gosh, 15, 20 miles, she was running, and she was running hard. She was doing the last 5 miles. She did an 8:30 pace all the way to you cross a boardwalk into Lake Erie. And we passed the third place overall. She was first female, ended up being third place overall in 84 hours and 84 and a half hours, I think it was. And just flew. It was the most incredible thing. And she has recovered well. She had very little issues. We taped things like her hips and her knee. She had a knee surgery 2 years ago, I think it was. So we taped her knee. She was having problems with her ankles. We taped her ankles. It was just an incredible thing to witness. It was amazing. And then the other, I would say, is Irene. I call Irene my comeback kid, because every race we do, every 100 miler we do, the 200, the 250 Cocodona, she would be like back of the pack. Maybe not dead last, but pretty close. And she would end up running that last 15 miles and making it in. At a couple of races, there were times she shouldn't have made it in, but she did. And so I would give her, like, I was like, okay, this is where we're at. I need you here at this time. That means you need to go this pace the entire time. I'd be constant. That's what I do. I'm constantly calculating while people are out there. This is what I'm doing. I'm calculating what we need to get to the finish. And it's not, your A goal is always just to finish, right? But then you have that B goal. I want to finish in so many hours. So depending on where we're at, that's what I'm doing, what I'm calculating. And she has come through every time. It's incredible to watch her do that.
That was my next question, was like, when you crew for somebody, then one of the aspect is like crewing or like spacing, right? How much fast we need to run, because you
Right,
need to communicate that out of so many. There are so many other things. Like the other question was about the ship that we're talking about, because when I talked to the folks who did Cocodona, they were like, Harry slept for 50 minutes, Cody slept for an hour and a half, Dante 3 hours. So everybody had different kind of things,
right.
but it's all, I think you all discussed it before the thing happened, right? So this is how much we'll sleep. So how do you determine all of these factors, like in terms of sleep, hydration, pacing?
Hmm.
Because it varies with runner, because
It
like you
does.
said, everybody is different, right? So everything is different for all of the people. So how do you balance everything? Like, when do you communicate, like when they need to sleep, or like
Oh,
how does everything happen?
so I have about 6 plans mapped out before we even go out to any race. And they know what the plans are. Okay. If this, then that. I always have a backup plan. Even when things go poorly or something I didn't anticipate, there's always some kind of fix. There's always some kind of plan. But I have about 6 plans for each way on any race that I do. I write it out, I give them a copy, we talk about it. I am very much in tune with my runner for that. When they hire me, it's a year, it's 6 months before. So I get very close with the runner, and we know, what the plan is. This is what our goal. What do you want to do? I want to finish. Okay, great. Wow, what do you want to finish in? So I have different plans for everything. And when plans go awry because there was snow in the mountains, or right, then we have to adapt, and we go to that. And luckily I have a great math brain, so I can math on the fly. Even with little sleep, that brain still kicks in. It's like my best friend. She's a doctor. She can still doctor. She may be hallucinating, but she can still doctor. It's incredible to watch her do that. So, yeah, so I'm constantly doing pace in my head. This is what we need as far as miles and pace and finish times go. It's always, my brain is always working. Even like when I'm out there and I don't have my plan book, it's always in my head, like what we need to be going. And if I'm not pacing you, the pacer who I send you out with, they know what is the drop dead pace that they cannot go under, that they have to keep you at that a pace or above to get to the next aid station. I always take the runners in at the finish line because I want that. I want to cross the finish line. We've done this work for so long, right? So I always do take the last leg. But they know that's what they need to have their runner at, that pace, to get them in. As far as nutrition goes, yeah, that can be trickier. Now, I've been so very fortunate. Again, there's a guy, John. He is so super fast. He's like Alec fast, but about 20 years older than Alec. John he'd be another one, a good one to have on your podcast. He's super fast. I think John's maybe 54. He's a little bit younger than myself, and he's incredibly fast. He came to me with stomach issues. Like, he would start getting sick on these 100-milers around mile 60, nausea, getting sick. So we sat down and we talked about everything, and it ended up being his salt intake was too low. So he was not, when you're a fast runner, you metabolize so much quicker. So you're not average. You're not with the norm. You have to do a different calculation for salt. So some people, I've had them get the sweat test done so we can see like exactly what their sweat ratio is, so we can adapt to that. We fixed that with John, and 2 years ago, I think, is when we started working together. And he did Canal Corridor, didn't even start to feel any nausea until mile 95. And by then, you can do nausea for 5 miles. You can do anything for 5 miles at mile 95. So it's a lot of adapting. The great thing about a 200-milers, you have so much time to fix things. I love 200-milers for that reason. You have a lot of time. Sometimes your 100-milers, you don't have enough time, even though you're like, okay, it's at least 20, 24 hours, unless you're Alec, that you can adjust things. But yeah, if they're nauseated, then we come up with a plan of what they're eating, what we're doing with our salt intake, what we're hydrating with. Sometimes we're eating salt on ice cubes. We're just sucking ice cubes in salt for the next couple of miles, right? We're eating Altoids, because peppermint Altoids are like medicine out in a 100-miler especially. They are a cure. They seriously have cured more nausea, I can tell you, than things I've ever done. They're the red Altoids, okay? The big ones, not the minis. And yeah, I send them out with all the pacers. I send them out with the runners. And so if there's nausea, you start taking 2 of those for 10 minutes. And normally that's the fix. Yeah. So it's a lot of problem solving.
Yeah, it is. I mean, especially crewing is because so many things comes up: sleep, hydration, and then even like the pacing, like you were talking about. So you mentioned earlier on. You said that even before you go on a race, there is 6 things you had in mind, right? So there are 6 things that you have ready before you do anything. So what are the most important thing for you when you plan an event?
Is it their first one? That's the number one. Is it their first 100-miler? Is it their first 200-miler? That makes a difference. And how you approach things, how I talk to them. And anybody will tell you this, I've been called a lot of things on the trails while I've been crewing because I can be stern. Listen, I've had people want to quit on me, and I will be pretty tough. And my last resort is guilt. Are you kidding me? I just took a week off of vacation. We're out here in the mountains, and you're tired and you're not really, because guilt works. It works every time. But I really get to know the runner up front. We spend a lot of time together talking. We'll go training together, and it doesn't matter. I'll drive out to where the runner is so we can get the right training, or we'll meet somewhere that if we need more elevation. So getting to know the runner is really important. It's just not going out and pacing someone for the first time. I really get to know them, what's in their mind, what are they used to doing. Even the ones that I can't go out and run with, like John, I can't go out and run with John, but we spent a lot of time on the phone talking about things. That what is he afraid of? And it's hard to get guys to admit like what they're afraid of. When we as women will like give you our own personal diatribe every single time, right? But men are a little bit harder. But once you focus on their fear, what that fear is, and you can bring it down and say, oh, I've dealt with that, and tell them how you dealt with it, then the trust is built. And it's a huge thing. Trust is a huge thing between the two of us. You have to trust me out there. You have to know that I will get you to the finish, but you got to listen. Like, you do your thing. You just go. You run, you hike, you walk, you get here when I tell you to. Other than that, I've got you, right? So the trust, building that trust, that's probably really the number one thing as we go into the race. Because if you don't trust me, you're going to have that in your head when you're already having fear, when you're in pain, when you want to quit, things like that. So that's probably the number one thing that I start with when we're building our plans. And then again, I lay out the plans for them. I tell them, what they need, what they don't need, I give them a list of things to pack. I'm an overpacker. And I tell you what, it has saved us so many times. They're like, I've never ran in that. Okay, that's great. Take it with you. Oh, guess what? It just dropped 25 degrees and it's raining outside. Aren't you glad you brought your gloves? Those waterproof gloves. So aren't you glad you changed your shoes at mile 50 now? Because you don't have any blisters, right? So that's probably the things that help the most, is just building that trust. So when you say, this is what you need to do, they pack it, they do it, they're all in on what's going on. Now, for the speedier ones, I don't make their mileage plans at all. I'll just say, hey, you need this much elevation, because I've already looked at like the elevation and calculated how much per mile that is. So I'll say, you need, like for Tahoe, on the old course where we did it all the way around, you need 200 feet of elevation gain per mile, because that's going to match you out in Tahoe. So if you're a flatlander here in Ohio, you know what? We're going to go in the sauna like we were talking about, because sauna therapy, we work up into it. That expands the oxygen level. We've never had HAPE out there. We've never had mountain sickness out there. And I truly believe it's because Julia and I, my doctor friend, we studied that before we started our 200, is that oxygenates the blood, and your blood volume, it expands everything, your lungs, everything out there. I'll say, okay, you need to do 30 minutes of sauna Tuesday and Thursday, things like that.
And when we talk about crewing, right, it is same as running too, because it's not same as running, but it is same in the level that it both need a lot of mental grit. Because you were talking about earlier on, and you're like, you don't sleep, so that works. Because when you're running, yes, you are running, but the sleep is so bad, and then especially if you're crewing, then you have to keep an eye on everybody, right? So
Right.
you are probably not sleeping at the same time as well. So how do you train yourself, for you as who is the crew chief, and you are planning everything, because and you are up most of the time, like same as the other people. So, and how do you train your body, and what do you do when you also want to quit sometime? It's tough, because when you have to be, if you do Cocodona 250 or longer events, then you have to be up for 4,
Yeah.
5, 6, 7 days.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Days.
So
It is. It
yeah.
is.
So how do you navigate when those things happen, like when you are tired, you're exhausted, and things like that?
So, developed a system back in 2019, 2018, when we were training for Tahoe, where we trained our bodies to take short naps and our bodies adapted. So, we would go out. I work a full time job, and we would go out on break, and both of us would do this. We would set our alarm for 10 minutes. Okay. We are able to literally fall asleep and wake up in 10 minutes. So, we trained ourselves for small naps, and that really works. I do have insomnia, so it gives me a little bit of edge in the fact that I don't sleep well, so it doesn't matter. So I do have that edge, but everybody gets tired at 116 hours, right? That's not. So I when they sleep, I don't sleep when they're sleeping. We usually in a 200 get about 90 minutes. We let them have 90 minutes of sleep at certain intervals. It depends on if they get tired during the day or during the night, because some people are night stalkers. They do really well at night. So normally what I'll do, I'll try and sleep when they do, but it doesn't usually happen because I'm afraid of they need me, they to get them something, they're hurting, they're right, or I'll miss an alarm even though I have four set. So I don't sleep that well. I'm a cat napper, really. I do that and normally at a 200 you have more crew, so you put them on red alert. Like here's the inReach, okay? I'm going to go in the car and sleep for 15 minutes. Come get me if there's anything, if you have a question. So having other crew there that you can depend on is important too, so that they know, okay, they're on red alert, they need to monitor this for 15, 20 minutes while I sleep. And even if I don't sleep, at least giving my mind that break, right, from everything, from the phones, from everything, that helps too.
And crewing is same as running, except for you don't run. You're there at the event, right? So if you do go, like you said, you did Cocodona, Tahoe 200. So like you just said, KD did at 84 hours, and on the Cocodona it was 115, 14 hours, right? So when you go and crew for somebody, then it's like you are sacrificing your personal time to do that, and being a mother, and you have yourself, your family, and then you are here helping other people to make the dreams come true. Basically, that's what you're doing. You're helping other people to succeed and do these incredible distances and crewing for them, right? So what is this price, or what is the goal for you, because you are sacrificing so much of your personal time?
The number one thing is helping, what you said, helping somebody's dream come true. That's in my heart. That gives me such joy that everything else, it's irrelevant, right? It's like helping them is the number one thing. That's what I love. And then to be able to travel to places, right? Different places. I'd been to California, but not the mountains or Western states. I went out to Western states. I'd never done that. And that's the iconic epitome of racing. So to be able to go out, to be in that is just energy to me, and I love it. They do pay my expenses, they do pay me. So for me to go out, and yeah, it can be hard, but you're in the mountains. I'm doing something I love that gives me great joy. So to take time off from work, it doesn't matter. Now my kids are older, they're out of the house now. My daughter just graduated last year from college, so they don't need me as much anymore. So it's easier like to let that go. And then I have a great partner. He's fantastic. Lets me do my thing. It's really a joy thing.
So you also have a good support system then, like you were talking about earlier on. That's what we need, right? So,
Right.
and when you are crewing, and when you have seen all of this, right? So you have done so many, we have taken so many runners across the finish line, and making the decision on the hydration, gear, nutrition, all of the things. So what has been the most common things that don't get the props while you are doing this crewing, and and related to the running performances.
That don't get the props.
Yep. In terms of gears, nutrition, you're like, okay, this thing works, but they don't get a lot of recognition in sort of ways.
Oh gosh. Probably I'll tell you one thing for training that does not get the props that helps so much out in the mountains is a weighted vest. We train with weighted vests on. We start at 10 pounds and then go up to 20 pounds. That's just gets underutilized. Nobody ever talks about it, and they're fantastic. Love them. And I'm not talking like the ruck vests. I have it right here. Let me show you. It's this vest right here. So it wraps around you just like a vest. So you can put your hydration over top of it. So they're amazing. It's the Hyperfit vest. That is
Interesting.
under not given enough props. During a race, people love different lights for different reasons when they're out there because light's so important, especially in the mountains. I love the Ultraspire waist vest. I don't think I have that around here. I love a light in the middle, right? And then a headlamp. But that waist is incredible because you can see everything, especially again in the mountains when you're walking that narrow path and the incline is this way, the mountain is this way. It's so important to see that and see the bears that are coming at you, right? The animals that are on the trail. You remember you're in their house, so you pay huge respect to them. So a waist lamp, so important. A big enough vest out when we're doing those long 200s, 250s, you have to have the capacity for not only your hydration pack, right? A 2 liter, 3 liter, whatever you use, but then it's got to have enough pockets and zippers and everything space because you're packing 12 pounds. You're carrying 12 pounds with you on your back, which is why that weighted vest is so important over that 200, 250 miles. People don't talk enough about a big enough pack. Like we do this Solomon 12. It has 12 different places that you can put things. And when we're out in the desert, Cocodona, hydration, so important, right? You go through a 3 liter pretty quickly. So then we pack the Solomon squishy bottles. So as you're drinking, that squishes up and you just stick it in, but you have enough hydration. And there are a couple people that will not. They don't like the tubing and everything for hydration pack. So then we get the squishy bottles for them. They carry 8 of those all around them, right? And then they collapse so that your weight goes down as you're drinking. So that's probably underutilized too, and a great trick if you don't like tubing for whatever the reason. Poles are so important out in big long races. Either you're supporting yourself because you're tired, right? One even on flat, or just climbing up the mountains, or even climbing down. Like for your race, like going down and your quad was hurting so much, that pole would have given you some relief off of your quad. So I think poles, they're becoming more and more popular, but poles are not talked about enough.
Like I said, steep learning curve.
Right. And some races don't allow poles. The shorter distances don't usually allow poles, but I think for the
I saw people were carrying it. Their
oh, they were okay.
wise people were carrying
Okay.
it.
Okay.
And when we talk about the crewing, it's not solo, right? Because there is so many people are involved, and it needs so much energy
Yeah.
because you have to manage the energy, you have to manage the stress, and there are often times when you may feel burned out from everything. So how do you manage that?
Never let them see you sweat. Like they know when I'm getting tired. Like I don't smile as much. I'm in my head a lot because I'm constantly calculating. But they know you have to have one person in charge. There cannot be a ton of people. So like anytime we put a crew together, they have to know who the leader is. They know it's me. They know that I can be militant at times because it's in the best interest of the runner. We're not here for each other's ego. We're here for the runner. So they need to know the plan going up front. Listen, we've got 6 different plans. If something fails, you need to know I've got a backup. If something new pops up, and I've seen a lot, but if something new pops up, there is always a solution. You just got to figure it out. What's the solution? What's the best solution at the time? You have to manage different personalities, right? And sometimes some of the personalities don't come out until they're tired. And right. And so you have to manage that with as much care and confidence. And sometimes you can tell them, go, hey, go walk, go be by yourself, go take a break, go. We have plenty of time. They're not coming in for, right? Or go to bed. Like sometimes you have to tell your crew, go to bed, go eat, because you're managing them as much. Because if they're out there pacing and they are lacking nutrients, they're lacking hydration, right? So that's why how crew mom became my name, is because I'm literally a mom out there, right? Everybody, okay, you're gonna go eat. You need to eat. What do you want? You need to drink, even to the crew, the entire time, right? You need to sleep right now. Go take a nap. Go sit down. Don't stand here with your legs pasting on your legs. You're gonna be out there for 20 miles and 5 hours. Who knows? So I know you're nervous because you have people pacing. Take a load off. Sit down. It can be challenging, but really, if you prep everybody ahead of time, then everything usually goes very smoothly.
This should be interesting. So let's say in a situation where your runner bombs or one of your crews up when they're at the checkpoint, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you handle it at that particular moment? Do you own it, or do you have some other words, or how do you manage this
Am
situation where
I
somebody
am I
bombs
at
at
the
speed?
checkpoint, or they call me, or they told me afterwards? There's different. Am I at that checkpoint with them and they've screwed up, or they're calling me on the inReach? Because I've had people do that. Listen, I didn't get them this. Now they're feeling this. What do we do? We're out on the trail. I don't even say you screwed up. It's not. It's irrelevant. You just have to attack what the problem is right then and there. The screw up doesn't matter. Later, like even after the race later, because we'll always have a meetup afterwards, then we'll say, okay, what are our lessons learned from this, right? I never point the finger or, dude, you shouldn't have, whatever. It's not, right? It's irrelevant. It doesn't help anything in the time, and it only makes them feel bad, and I need them to do their job, right? If they're still out there, or if they have the next leg, right? They know they've screwed up. The people that we take out there with us, they own it. They're either ultra runners themselves, or their family, or the best friend, and they own it. I've only had one issue with one person over the years, and that, for the most part, everybody owns it. But I don't address like the screw up. I figure out how to solve the problem that had the screw up in it. Okay, like Pacers always carry extra fuel, extra water, a squishy bottle, the Solomon bottles of water. That's for the runner, right? If they run out of anything, and you're not supposed to mule, and I know that, but if it means life or death for my runner, right? Yeah, those are the things that they're prepared with. And I don't think it's ever happened, because the runners on the 200, 250s, we always have an emergency gels for them, right? If they're out there longer than what we've calculated, for whatever the reason, they have an extra 500 calories on them. So I don't know that anybody's ever had to give anything, but they carry it on them. So
And what are the things that are fueling you? Because you are wrecked, sleep deprived, right? And sometimes everything is falling apart. So, and what is this thing that keeps telling you, okay, we got to keep forward, keep moving?
it's the finish line. That's their dream, and everything else is irrelevant. Yeah, everything can be going wrong, and there have been things going wrong, right? It's their dream, it's their goal. That's what you hired me for, that's what you brought me out here for. So even though in my mind might be swirling and going, oh my gosh, I still believe in the end result. I just need to figure out the solution to get us there. So I still am like, okay, we can do this. We have plenty of time. This is how we're going to attack it. So if you have a problem, think of the solution, what that solution is, and then just go with it because they've already put their trust in you. You've already built that. They trust you to come up with the solution. They're going to do what you say, right? And then be like, okay, right? And then this is how we're going. We learned from Tahoe the first time too, out in 2019. Tahoe has what do we call it? The Tahoe TB, tuberculosis. Because out in Tahoe, you develop cold like symptoms, a really heavy chest cough. And it's not HAPE, all snotty, you're not able to breathe. So, again, my best friend's a doctor. So we developed a protocol that we take out when we go into the mountains. And it works. It works. We don't get that lung congestion at all. We have the pacers do it. We have her do it. And we just start it from day one, that protocol, and it gets it done.
And you transition from being a runner and now you are crewing people and then helping them finish they cross the line. So has there been any events that you want to crew?
Oh, yeah. I want to go back to Western States with someone because the runner didn't finish Western States. Myself and the other pacer, we trained harder for Western States than he did. And it was just awful. So, yeah, I want to go back to Western States. It's amazing out there. I've been out there as a spectator, I've been out there as a volunteer, but I haven't been out there crewing and pacing. I flew out the year that we went, I flew out and I did the training camps out at Western States. I did them as a pacer and crew. He chose not to. So when you go out and you do that, I mean, so yeah, I know a lot of the course of Western States and I want to be back out there. And so, Western States, I've done the Triple Crown of 200s. A Monster 300 came up, so I want to do the 300 just for distance. I don't know necessarily that it's a course thing. Obviously, I wanted to do Cocodona because it was desert to mountains. I hadn't done a big desert race before, so Cocodona was amazing. I'd love to go to Europe. I'd love to do UTMB. I'm trying to think what else is really. Those are probably the two. Western States and UTMB is probably the ones that I like are on my heart, and I really want to get out there and do it. And I have some runners. They're entered for, but they haven't been pooled yet for Western States. So we're working on it. We do all qualifier 100s for Western States. I do. I have some runners, but just a matter of time before they get pulled.
And I ask these questions to a lot of people. So when we were talking about it on like how we transitioned from triathlon to marathoner, and from being a marathoner you transitioned to trail running, and then you became a trail runner, and then you transitioned from trail runner to being crew mom, right? So in that note, sir, why do you run? Because you said you pace last part of the course as well, right? So because you want to take them to the finish line. So but for yourself, why do you run?
Mental health. It's great physically, but you can do a lot physically, right? I still ride my bike and paddleboard and stuff like that. But really, running, I can lose myself and my thoughts when I run. I don't sleep a lot, so when I'm up at 3:30, I go run. It's great. I love being outside. I am an outside person. So I love being outdoors, and you can run at any time. You don't need much. I can run anywhere. I always take my running shoes. I try and find a trail, but when I don't, I run the road. And I live in the city, so I have to travel. So in the mornings, I'm usually doing the road anyway. But yeah, it's really a mental health thing for me more than a physical for me. So there's nothing like a 5 miler, and I can feel the worst at mile 3 and still have a good run by mile 5.
And like, can you imagine yourself? So if you go back, right? So when you are doing this triathlon, because if you didn't fall off the bike, you probably never had done the running, and you could have never done the ultra marathon and become this crewman that you are right now. So if you go back, and do you think that they would believe that this is what her future would be?
I don't think so. But I also have an ingrained saying that everything happens for me, not to me. So me falling off the bike led me to running, which led me to trail, which led me to being crew mom, which is my great one of my greatest joys. My kids are my greatest joy. But like to be able to help people and do that's amazing. So I don't know that I would have ever envisioned this because I was really trying to be a triathlete because I had a fear of water. So for me to go in open water and do these swim, like that was a thing for me. That's why I started in triathlons is because I was like, all right, you got to get over this fear of the water. And so that's what I started in triathlons for. And then I had that wreck. And no, I don't think I would have ever envisioned myself as a crew mom and taking care of people and becoming just learning so many things and learning so many things on the fly. I love to problem solve. That's how my brain works. And so it's just, I think it was a natural evolution for me. But did I think that this was my path? No.
And so this is the last question I ask everybody. I would like you to finish this sentence, seeing how your life has gone, right? So
Okay.
from triathlon, because that's something you wanted to pursue. I would like you to finish this sentence for me, please. Running has changed my life because.
It made me know that I could do more than I ever thought I could.
Awesome. Oh, so this was so insightful. Like in this podcast, we usually have people who are running and not the person who is behind and helping with all the support on how they finish the races and stuff like that. So yeah, thank you so much for your time and
Oh,
giving
thank
this
you.
different perspective on the races and how things goes, because we are only privy of knowing what happens in the races, and now this is something totally different. So thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you, Ash, for having me on. I appreciate you. Thanks.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. See you next time. Bye
Okay.
bye.
Bye.
Hey everyone, thank you for making it to the end of the podcast. I hope you really enjoy this conversation. I'll see you again next time with another guest. Until then, happy running.